Anti-intellectualism. Everyone agrees it's on the rise. So what's a humanities girly to do? Welcome, fellow curiosos, old and new. Well, everyone is new here today because this is my first video. I'm C and this is my channel, Useless Genius. I am not a genius. I can barely string together a few sentences, but this channel is dedicated to all the things that we're told are useless or frivolous. The digital landscape is vast, so I want to stake my claim on this little corner of the internet and hopefully create a community where we can learn just for the fun of it. I'll be addressing the general trends of anti-intellectualism, where they come from, and then where my channel is going to fit in to this little internet world. So what is anti-intellectualism? Is it just hating academics? Because yeah, they can be pretentious as hell. But no, it's something else. Anti-intellectualism is not about your personal hobbies or the things you enjoy. Let's turn to an official definition. Don't just, take my word for it. This book by Richard Hofstadter defines anti-intellectualism as, quote, resentment of the life of the mind and those who are considered to represent it, and a disposition to constantly minimize the value of that life. Right now, we see that as humanities departments are underfunded, museums and the arts are gutted, and the current administration seems to be at war with higher education and freedom of speech. It's not limited to the humanities either. We see that public health infrastructure is being picked away at, and since the 2020 coronavirus pandemic, we've seen an uptick in skepticism of experts, or so-called experts. But this trend is not new. It's woven into the fabric of American life, specifically American evangelical Protestantism. And to be clear, in this video, I am talking about religion from a sociological and historical perspective. This is not an attack on anyone's beliefs or their church or community. Rather, I'm looking at the academic studies where people like Hofstadter and other historians have documented how evangelical Protestantism prioritized the spirit and personal faith over expertise and intellectualism. Historian Mark A. Knoll discusses this in his book, Civil War as Theological Crisis. Historian Mark A. Knoll discusses this in his book, The Civil War as Theological Crisis. It talks about how the question of whether slavery was permissible by the Bible ended up dividing the states. Southern slave owners argued that because the Bible did not explicitly say slavery is bad, you could still be a good Christian and own slaves, while the Northerners took a more abstract and less literal approach, saying that the values that were taught by the Bible would make slavery impermissible. And this question of a literal versus more expansive interpretation is still being debated today. For example, the Supreme Court often cites constitutional originalism as its justification for peeling back rights that are granted by more expansive interpretations of the First and the 14th Amendment. I cite these two amendments because for other amendments, like the Second Amendment, the interpretations are very expansive, which shows how these literal interpretations can often be very subjective or not applied equally. Another comparable period in recent history was McCarthyism and the Red Scare in 1950s America, where intellectuals and prominent figures with communist or just general far left beliefs were persecuted under the guise of national security. Since then, we've obviously had the development of the internet, what's making all of this possible. And I think it's been, there's both positive and negative consequences, shall we say. One positive is that marginalized people have been able to document their experiences, and other people who have been typically kept out of academic and media institutions are able to create their own platforms. I think we've seen this with the broader documentation of police brutality in the 2010s and the proliferation of mass protest. However, in the same vein, that also means far-right voices that have also been shunned out of the media have been elevated by the algorithm, and we see people retreating into ever more isolated information environments. Content has been reduced in length along with our attention spans, so there's not much room for nuanced discussions. And when everyone is placed on an equal platform in this attention economy, that means that expertise kind of starts to lose its meaning. I also think now that women, and especially Black women, are succeeding in higher education, it's being devalued. Because at the end of the day, meritocracy is often just a mask to disguise underlying structures of white supremacy and patriarchy. And this isn't helped by the fact that universities and public institutions often side with power and capital rather than their own students and staff. They really aren't doing themselves any favor. And to be clear, there's a distinction between individual academic achievement, which is certainly something to be proud of, and the overarching role that universities are playing in society right now. Because universities are a business, and they seem to currently think that they can cater to a few wealthy clients rather than fulfill their stated goals of, educating.
So this is greatly undermining the humanities. Most people cannot afford to sit around and expect poetic about philosophy when they have student debt to pay and need a high-paying job that will make their degree worth it.
Well, that creates even more disillusionment and perpetuates the image of academia as an ivory tower. And I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of hypocrisy here because I think there are valid critiques of the surpluses of higher education, as I just mentioned, but it's often Black, POC, and queer scholars that are the first to get thrown under the bus when the administrations face social pressures or have to do budget cuts. Meanwhile, they are quick to defend older white professors who have been, criticized for actual misconduct. My point being that issues of intellectualism and the university are not clear-cut, and there are fair critiques of higher ed, just they aren't always evenly applied. So at this point, you're probably wondering, girl, what is the point? Please get to it. If anti-intellectualism is this huge trend, and even their supposed protectors in the university are corrupt, then what are you trying to do here? Well, good question. Simply put, I want to help cultivate, a life of the mind outside of all this pretense. My background is in art history and religious studies. But after I graduated college and, got a job, I started to lose interest in things that I had previously been passionate about. I got super addicted to my phone and just kind of let the algorithm feed me whatever content it needed. Honestly, my attention span declined a lot and it was really bad. So bad, once I was out with friends and my phone died and I asked my friend to borrow her phone just so I could scroll it, have a little scroll as a treat. So I decided to challenge myself every night to try and write down a few of the things that I had learned from that day, being online. And oftentimes I could only remember one or two things, even after hours of scrolling reels or watching YouTube. Then I decided to, try and consume more consciously, and things started improving. I was reading books and watching movies and finally doing the things that I actually love. So that brings me to today. I wanted to, create something of my own to go against the constant stream of content and AI generated slop, actually use my own brain to make something. And I hope that you'll come on this journey with me. And even if you just watch this and think, I could do so much better than her, then please go do that. Go make stuff. That makes me so happy. But I hope that, you get something out of this channel as much as I do. I'll be making videos here every week. I already have a few out, so please go check those out. Link in the description or, the sidebar area thing. Comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. 2, 3. Take 3 something. Take something.